Let me say hello, say welcome. I'm checking some things just to make sure we're up and running. And then I'm going to introduce myself and properly say hello. So let me just check in here real quick and make sure that we're going. Um, hold on one second. Okay. We look like we're going okay. How are you guys? How's everybody? We made it through another damn week. Yay! Okay. So, once again, oh gosh, you can see my clothes hanging right there. Hold on. Can I fix that? What else are you going to see if I turn away? Um, Sorry, you're going to see my laundry. I did not think to move that. Those are clothes hanging, drying. Ignore that. Ignore what's behind the curtain. It's fine. It's fine. Hey, I cleaned the fridge though, right? That's something. So I'm back in front of my fridge. And by the way, if you're having a hard time hearing me to that point, let me know in the comments because again, just like the first time we did this and I was in front of my fridge, I don't have headphones in, so I can't hear myself very well. I can't hear myself, so I don't know in the mic if I am coming across okay or not. So you let me know and I can always tone it down or speak up if I need to. So welcome. Hi. You are at the Don't Watch at Night Creepy Cocktail Hour number 5. I'm Valerie. I'm one half of the hosting team for Don't Watch at Night, which is a spooky little podcast dedicated to lifting up Spanish language horror and Latin American horror. We are about to hit our birthday, second anniversary, entering year 3. I think I've been saying on our promos that we've been doing on our episodes lately, I've been saying entering year 2. That's a lot. That's me not knowing how to do math. We're entering year 3, and so that's exciting. Veronica is my co-host. Veronica is also my sister. So it's been exciting. It's been really rewarding to do this show with her, and we're really happy that we've been able to continue doing it. And so you're here, Creepy Cocktail Hour. I do want to remind you guys up top that we do have a brand new episode on the podcast this week. If you haven't tuned in yet, you can find us over on Spotify or wherever you tune into podcasts, including YouTube. We are talking this week about 1977's Suspiria, which was a fun, super fun movie. Revisiting the clips from that movie this week. Again, just can't get over the brilliant use of color, the amazing set design. I said this on the episode, and I want to say it again here too. If you've seen it, if you love it as much as a lot of people do, then you know that there are just certain scenes that to me just look like you're staring at a piece of art, including that first fantastic death scene at the start of Suspiria. So, yeah, go listen to that episode if you haven't, and enjoy it. And then the other thing I want to make sure you know, two things actually. I want to make sure you guys know that going into June, Veronica and I typically take the month of June off, so you are going to still be getting podcast episodes. They're going to be kind of best of compilation episodes, which are really great, especially if you're like needing to catch up on episodes or if you want to bring people into the fold and get them to listen and try out our podcast. Then these are great episodes to listen to. And June is a great episode to catch up on what we have in our catalog so far. So we'll be out for June, and then we come back in July with new movie discussion and then also book club discussion. So the summer reading that we've chosen for Don't Watch at Night is Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. We're going to be discussing that at the end of July. That'll be second episode of July. So get that book if you haven't read it yet. It's been out for a while. So if you have read it, great, you're ready. If you want to reread it, whatever. If you join our Patreon, we'll be sure to link that for you guys after this. You can be part of book discussion there. You can also be part of like pitching book ideas for the future and movie ideas for the future. So it's a great way to sort of be connected with us and help us put out more on the show of what you want to see. So yeah, let me just cross that off. I've talked about that. Okay, so let's get to the cocktail. I'm so happy to be doing this in front of my fridge because I don't have to worry about ice melting while I'm chatting. So this cocktail is going to be an interesting one because this was really born out of the fact that like my cupboards be bare this week. We just don't have a whole lot of stuff stocked right now and haven't had a chance to restock stuff. So I was really scrambling to go through what we did have and see what I could pull together. So it's some pickings, and we're gonna see what this turns out to be. And if it's awful, that's my bad. But hopefully you're if you are imbibing, hopefully you're drinking a beverage of your choice, of your preference. So what I'm doing today is this is kind of a riff on something called the bijou or bijou. I could be, I want to say bijou cocktail, the bijou, whatever. Um, so the bijou cocktail traditionally it was invented by Harry Johnson. I want to first preface invented by Harry Johnson, who I think is like seen as like the king of bartending, kind of heralded in ushered in a movement of bartending. That cocktail calls for gin, sweet vermouth, and green chartreuse. What we are doing today is what Imbibe Magazine, where I pulled this from, imbibemagazine.com, calls the Golden Ghost, which I was going to say Golden Goose, but cool name for a cocktail. And um, it calls for 3/4 ounce mezcal, 3/4 ounce blanco tequila, and 3/4 ounce creme de cacao, along with 3/4 ounce Genepe, Genepe, don't know, but this is the bottle. I think I've pulled this out in various videos before. I don't know if I've done it for a cocktail hour, but yeah. Anyway, I always have stuff like this in my bar. Sorry if I'm distracted, it's because I'm trying to like read stuff at the same time as run a live stream. So I always have that on my bar. It's a good thing to go in all kinds of different cocktails. So it's a good one to keep. Has a little bit of sweetness to it, citrusy maybe. I don't know how to describe it. But then I don't know. I can't remember if I said this already, but dash of orange bitters. So and then you throw that all into a shaker, shake it up, strain it, garnish with a star anise, which I don't have. I also don't have blanco tequila. When I'm talking about like bare bones, I am working with what I've got. So I don't have blanco tequila on hand right now, but I do have mezcal. I have the mezcal that I always have. This is what we use. Again, this has also been featured on Don't Watch at Night episodes, probably on a cocktail hour or two. So we have that. So I'm just gonna have to work with that as the primary base spirit and hope that this still comes out good. So I have my shaker. So I'm going to do, since I don't have that 3/4 ounce tequila, I'm just rolling that into the mezcal. I'm going to do 1.5 ounces of mezcal. I have all of my ingredients pre-measured out. I've already done the orange bitters. So let me go ahead and get ice in my shaker. Yeah, let me do that. I was going to add all my ingredients first. Okay. All right. Let me get some ice in there first. There we go. Okay. Now, I have 1.5 ounces of the mezcal. Okay. And then I have 3/4 ounce creme de cacao. And it says white creme de cacao. I don't know what that means. White chocolate. I don't know what that means, but I have creme de cacao and it's clear. So again, it's cocktail experimentation up in here. If it tastes awful, that's on me. Then we have the 3/4 ounce Genepe. Genepe. It's Dolan. Dolan is the maker. So just look for this. Look for this. You can find this at Total Wine or at most liquor stores. God, if I drop a bottle, I'm like gonna freak out. And if you notice, it's got a little bit of color to it. So the creme de cacao was clear. This is kind of got a yellowish hue. If you hear my dog drinking water, that's because she was just drinking water. On that note, if you start to hear my dog aggressively bark and go nuts, it's because probably someone's knocking at the door. Earlier this week, here in the Austin area, we had a huge hailstorm. It didn't do any damage really to us. Killed many of my vegetable plants, so I'm real pissed about that. But other than that, we got lucky. But what that's meant is like a bunch of roofers and window people have been moving through the neighborhood, kind of, doing the rounds, offering services. So the doorbell's been ringing nonstop, and she's been going nuts today. So if that happens, if somebody comes to the door, highly likely, you're going to hear crazy barking. I will try to get control of that. Okay. So everything's in here. Ice is in there. And so now I'm going to do my shake. And I like to give it a nice good chill till like you have a little bit of frost here on the outside, right? Here we go. If you're drinking something today, feel free to drop it in the chat. I like that this is called the Golden Ghost. If I knew any campfire ghost stories, I would maybe now would be the time to talk about them, but I actually didn't think to even check that out until just now. So that would have made a good addition to our little cocktail hour. Okay. We kind of have some frost forming, but my hands are too numb for me to bother with it. So because I'm in front of the fridge, I'm able to do a chilled glass, which I prefer. It doesn't specifically call for that, but I prefer that. So here we go. Here we go. All right. See, I love that frost. Just adds to the experience. And I'm straining this in. So I don't know that you could even call this a golden ghost because it is quite incomplete. Maybe I just call this the gray ghost. I don't know. It was pretty clear. Looks pretty clear. If I had a little star anise, that would be a nice addition in this, but I don't. So cheers. Happy Friday. Enjoy. Let's see what this tastes like. It's actually really good. That's actually really good. I was thinking that was going to be garbage, but that's actually really tasty. You get that little, obviously smoky mezcal profile, but the creme de cow obviously adds that sweetness that blends perfectly with that smokiness. I imagine if I had a Blanco tequila, that would even balance out the flavor profile even better. And then that Dolan Genepi, again, it's an herbal liqueur, uh, and it offers a little bit of sweetness in its own right that balances really well with the creme de cow. So it was really tasty. It doesn't suck. Look at that. Yay. Oh, what a relief. I was like, God, I'm going to have to be drinking garbage for the hour that I'm doing my live stream. Yeah, that's good. That's good. You know what I have learned? If I may, if you'll humor me to talk a little bit about this. We don't get sponsors, but if we did, like this is such a good middle of the road mezcal, and I have done so many good drinks with this. I'm very interested in smoky mezcals. I haven't had a chance to try many. So if you know of some, please share. But this is one that I've tried and really liked, and I keep coming back to it because I really like it and because I don't know what else to try. So if you haven't given this a try, be on the lookout for it because I've incorporated this into so many. I've done a Oaxacan old fashioned with this. There's a cocktail that we did for a book club episode, Vampires del Norte, or was it Vampires of El Norte? Yeah, I think it was Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. And I did a cocktail called the Vaquero, and I incorporated this into it. It's really good. And this is surprisingly tasty. This modified riff on Golden Ghost, which is a modified riff on the Beaujolais. So, and it's kind of necessary to come up with modifications because I think like the Beaujolais, which calls for green chartreuse, I think green chartreuse is getting harder and harder to source right now. So, that Dolan's Genepi stuff can be a useful substitute for that. I've read and I've, used. So, yay, good. We did it. Hello. Okay, let me just check in real quick, make sure we're going. We're still going. Everything's good. I always like to just check in and make sure I'm not missing anything. So now we can get to our topic at hand. I have prepared 9 pages worth of information because this is such a favorite. Summer camp horror is the best. In this essay, I shall. So, our topic today, summer camp horror, has always been one of my favorite offshoots of the broader genre. And I suspect that it's because my young childhood, like my formative first 10 years of life, took place in about the 80s. Like giving it away here. I was born in 82. So, I was in elementary school all throughout the 80s. Those are my I guess you call them tender years. And so it has a special place in my heart. And I'm interested to know, as I was writing out my notes for today, I was interested to know if you're a child of like the 60s or 70s or even the 90s, do you find yourself more partial to the horror films of that era, or no? Because like I said, I have a soft spot for 80s horror, as I know a lot of people do, particularly people in Veronica's demographic and people who, like me, are, we're kind of elder millennials. We're kind of right there on the cusp. So, there are definitely younger people in the millennial bracket that are way younger than me and into way different things than I'm into. But me being on the elder millennial side of things, I still gravitate towards a lot of 80s stuff. And so do a lot of people in my age bracket. So um, I, I I know that certainly people in Ronnie's age bracket who would have been teenagers during the 80s obviously gravitate towards 80s horror films, as they should. I mean, I would too. So I'm just curious to know. Let me know what horror era your young childhood years took place in, and are you more partial to the films of that time because of that? Do you have a special space in your heart for those movies because of that? I'm curious to know. And I'm curious to know if, like, I'm the only one who just bizarrely, it's like I bizarrely relate to these movies about teenagers in the 80s even though I was like 7, like I wasn't doing anything even remotely what they were doing, but I thought they were cool and I wanted to be like them. And so yeah, I just, in my brain, those movies are it. And Veronica, if she were listening or watching or part of this, she would absolutely agree with me. She's like, 80s horror is the best. So I came across a lot of fun reads related to summer camps and what makes them such a fun, useful setting for horror. There's this really great read. And by the way, if you're part of our Patreon, then you get all of these resources that I pull information from. You get it all ahead of time. So you got the resources that I'm going to be pulling from today. You also got the cocktail recipe that I worked off of today. So um, and then I just told you all the modifications I had to make. So yeah, again, another reason to join Patreon. It's free to join and you get access to this stuff. It's just me and Veronica just shooting you this information all day long cuz we love this stuff and we want people to nerd out with us to it. So, um yeah, great read over at atlasobscura.com that you received, called "Why Are So Many Horror Movies Set at Summer Camp?" And it starts off by setting up a little bit of the scene for films like Friday the 13th, obviously, which is notable because as we are about to come up on what is June, we have on the calendar this year in June of Friday the 13th. And actually, I did not realize this until like last month that Veronica and I and our families, we take a camping trip every year. We go to these cabins up in like central Texas, hill country Texas. And it's not roughing it by any means. It's like camping with AC. And so we're going to be at these cabins and it's this fun little campground where like all the cabins are, nestled together as a summer camp would be. And we're going to be there on Friday the 13th. So that's so much fun. And if we don't come back, you'll know why. So, but yeah, fun to bring up. And what the article says is we start to see summer camp horror, part of the American slasher genre, really take off post 1968. And that coincides with the end of the Hays Code censorship era. So, not long after that, we get movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas, both of which came out in 1974. And while summer camp franchises like Friday the 13th will see wild success in the 80s, a lot of slasher movies that came out in the 80s saw wild success. Um, Critically speaking, they didn't get a ton of love at that time. They were frequently criticized for being exploitative and misogynistic. Those critiques aren't aren't wrong, I would say. Siskel and Ebert voiced their discontent with these films, though they have obviously retained a broad fan base amongst horror fans across generations now. So, I mean, there are kids younger than me that have grown up knowing the Friday the 13th films, the Halloween films, because those are films that continued well on. There were what, like 11 Friday the 13ths? I don't even know how many Halloweens, but yeah. So what's the appeal? Hang on. Before let me take a sip of my beverage, of my surprisingly good beverage. So what is the appeal? Why do we love these films so much? And childhood nostalgia aside, what is it that that makes them so much fun and kind of, I don't want to say feel good, but easy viewing for fans of horror? There is, mentioned in the piece, the Atlas Obscura piece, there is a film critic, Jonathan Kennan Muir, who is also the author of Horror Films of the 1980s, who says, for one thing, it's a secluded setting. You want that isolation, he says. You want your characters separated from mainstream society. At the same time, you want them close enough to mainstream society and like civilization nearby that it is conceivable and plausible that they would be able to go and get help or go and get away. So quoting directly from the article now, I'm pulling a lot of information from it, but this is direct quote. Campfire stories provide a built-in expository device to introduce the villain, and the camp counselors supply a ready-made cast of scantily clad young victims. And as Muir points out, the location is littered with convenient weapons. He says, you've got the archery contest. Sorry, if you've seen Robin Hood Men in Tights, then you know. Sorry. You have things like canoes and oars to separate people even further from the center of the action. Not to get off topic, but to get back to Robin Hood Men in Tights. So my sons recently have seen that movie. Well, they saw that movie like a long time ago, but recently I finally showed them because I finally decided they're old enough. It's time for you to see the films of the 90s. Not necessarily horror, but like action films of the 90s. Like I showed them Speed. And then I showed them Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which probably universally panned now, but at the time came out in what, 1991. That movie was a hit. That movie was like all over the place. Bryan Adams soundtrack. That song was a, as the kids say, a bop. Sorry. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, you can't say bop, girl. You're in your 40s. But anyway, point being, they saw Men in Tights before they saw Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So after they finally saw Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, I went back and showed them Men in Tights. And suddenly they're getting all those references. And then it's like properly funny for them because they're appreciating all the ways in which that movie digs on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So yeah. Anyway, had to explain that. Archery contest. Anyway, sorry. So, historian Leslie Paris, this is again pulling from the article. Historian Leslie Paris, author of Children's Nature: The Rise of the American Summer Camp, reminds us that the first sleepaway camps appeared in the late 19th century and they were primarily catered to male youth. And important to note, privileged male youth. It was male youth of means. So, from the article, this sort of aligned with the tenets of, this is in caps, muscular Christianity, which associated masculinity and fitness with spiritual purity. These early camps tackled a growing concern that elite boys were growing soft in cities like New York and Boston, and an experience of rugged outdoor adventure would whip them into shape. Isn't it funny how time repeats itself? Over the next few decades, camps began catering to a wider range of demographics, introducing city kids to nature in a controlled environment. So you can read that and immediately be like, baby, the horse scenario is right there, jumping off the page. Hello. So even given that, given that, like I said, we can read this and immediately pick up on the creepy factor, pick up on the potentially scary elements about something like that. The article also talked about how initially summer camp movies prior to the 80s weren't geared towards conjuring up, feelings of fear at all. There were a lot of comedic and romantic elements to camp movies pre 1980s. And John Kenneth Muir, the author, again, sees summer camp horror as a product of the Reagan era of the 80s, representing a reassertion of conservative values and Old Testament draconian beliefs. The paradigm of these films is really vice precedes slice and dice. So, like, for example, don't have sex. Well, these teens go and have sex. And then immediately what happens? They get dead. So, highlighting summer camp's reputation as a place of sexual awakening, it makes sense for these teen characters to hook up, smoke weed, but as soon as they do, they're almost instantly punished by the boogeyman. So, also talked about in the piece is how we've seen the summer camp horror motif slip away a little bit in more recent times. So with exceptions, and they note 2015's The Final Girls and Fear Street 1978, which came out in 2021. And for the record, I thought Fear Street 1978 was brilliantly done. It was honestly my favorite of the trilogies, of the movies in that trilogy. Um, and that's obviously because of the nostalgic trip that it takes you down. But I would argue, because I know that Fear Street 1978 was beloved by a lot of people who watched that trilogy when it came out in 2021. So I would argue that there's absolutely still an appetite for um, summer camp horror, and so I'm strongly advocating for a resurgence of summer camp horror. And I think we're seeing pockets of that. We've seen bursts of that in recent years. We'll get to that later on in the cocktail hour. But I think we need more. Let's see more. Yeah. Yeah. So there's also an argument to be made, in my opinion, that certain elements of Stranger Things um, evoke summer camp horror, and not just because of the time setting, but like, what did I say? Not just because of the 80s time setting, but the remoteness of the location, the ample wooded areas that the characters frequently find themselves in, the sense that these kids are always just enough apart from civilization and society that they often have to problem solve on their own, but yet still close enough that every now and then you get bumbling um, local authorities step in and try to intervene. So those are all kind of elements of, according to Muir in the piece, all elements of summer camp horror. So in my mind, given the popularity of Stranger Things, yeah, yeah. I don't know if you heard the doorbell, but somebody's at the door, probably offering their services. I'm going to ignore it the way a 80s latchkey kid like myself was taught to do. Because 'Cause, we don't answer doors, and, like, this is a thing, and I have the hardest time explaining this to my children because, like, the doorbell will ring, and I just instinctively freeze up and wanna pretend like I'm not here. Lights out, I'm not here, and I have the hardest time explaining that to my kids who are like, somebody will come to the door, and they'll, like, go and stare out the window. She'd be like, "Who's there? Da 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 da. Oh, should we pick up? Mom, somebody's at the door." Like, "No, ma'am. No, sir. We don't do that. Stranger danger. You don't go to the door when you're 4. Don't do that." So, it's been an uphill battle for me, a true child of the 80s, a small young child of the 80s, having grown up in that "don't go to the door" mentality, to raise children in this day and age who just be like, "Oh, someone's at the door. Well, then I must go answer it. I must go talk to them, whoever they are." In this case, it's probably someone offering roof services. But as I said, our roof is fine. We're not in need of services. So anyway, let me get back to this. So the article kind of addresses the issue of perhaps the slippage of summer camp horror in the stratosphere lately. addresses it with this. This is one of the points it closes on, saying that maybe the reason we've seen summer camp horror fade away is that summer camps just aren't seen as so scary anymore. I don't think that's true, but particularly measured up against the world's far scarier threats out there today. And yes, sure, of course, but also, and these are just my 2 cents. Summer camp is a bit of escapism, and while I'm definitely, you will always hear me talk up the value of real world horror depicted in art mediums, in this case, film. I'm a huge fan of that. And I'm a huge fan of it in books too. I equally support escapism in our art. And like I said, up at the top of this hour, summer camp horror, feels fun. It's just fun. And it feels like something that doesn't require a ton of brain work at the end of the day. So that has value also, in my opinion, particularly when measured up against those far scarier threats that we're facing today. So, yeah, I like, don't sit out on summer camp horror just because it's not as scary as real life. A lot of things aren't as scary as real life right now, but that doesn't mean we don't need them in our stories. So, yeah, boom on that. There's also a really great article. Hold on, let me hydrate with liquor. Not hydration. Don't get me wrong. I know that. Okay, there's also a really great article that I mentioned, that I linked for you guys, from Screencraft, that highlights that horror films are, of course, genre films, and genre films are all about atmosphere. The when and where a story takes place is just as important as the feeling that it creates. For many of us, the woods are scary, like Muir says in the previous piece, isolated out from the urban areas that we may otherwise inhabit. Um, being being pulled out of that and thrown into a area of seclusion immediately causes unease for many of us. And on that note, I would like to share with you a little tale of when my husband and I got married. We went on our honeymoon. We went on like a trip that involved, very outdoorsy dude, that one. I'm much more like lounge on a beach with a mimosa. But anyway, very outdoorsy guy. We went on one of those honeymoons where it's a lot of hiking, a lot of us with boots on and backpacks and water and granola bars and all kinds of crap. And so the first leg of the honeymoon was us sort of in urban environment, enjoying everything that the city has to offer. The middle portion of the honeymoon was um, the most terrifying, and we'll get to that. And then the third portion was us at the beach, where I was probably my most relaxed and my most happy. I was also happy in the urban area too. Where I was the most stressed out was when we got to the countryside of where we were, which was at the time terrifying. I could look at it now and be completely, I can appreciate what that was better. Maybe. I don't know. I watch a lot of true crime, so maybe not. But like at the time, all I could think about the entire week that we were, or however long we were there in that countryside portion of the trip, out there in the middle of nowhere, secluded, not a, I think the closest town community was maybe like 20, 30-minute drive away. All I could think about was like, man, this is how those stories start. The young, lovely, newly married couple goes out on their honeymoon and then never seen again. And so like the first night that we were there, he kept trying to get, because we rented this home. It had a beautiful wraparound porch. I mean, he went above and beyond. It was gorgeous. He wanted us to go outside and enjoy the beautiful stars because we were literally out in the middle of nowhere. And I was trying to drink myself under the table so that I could just pass out and go to sleep. That's how stressed out I was. It was, and like I didn't, I mean, I think I went out with him outside to look at the stars for maybe like few minutes one night the entire time we were there. The place we were renting that we were staying there, I think also had like a hot tub. I think his grand idea was that we would be out in the hot tub at night and enjoying the open air and the beautiful stars. Never happened. I never wanted to do that because I did not want to be in that position of vulnerability if we were to get attacked. Um, so yeah, causes unease, and you can see why. Absolutely, from an atmospheric point of view, again, summer camp horror films are so easy to tap into and enjoy because it really does hit a fear point for many of us, and I just shared why. So, you're also talking about putting a story in an environment where creepy campfire tales are already a thing, have already been a thing. And so, again, that recipe for a horror story was always there in the context of that. And so, I think it took a little bit of and Jonathan Kenneth Muir kind of says as much in the piece as well, the previous piece. I think it kind of took a rebel yell mentality that was so pervasive in the 80s to maybe tap into what was already there on the page, so to speak, when it comes to camping and elements for horror. Also, when you get into like, urban legends and folklore and things that sort of tap into, and we'll get to this too in this next point that I have, tap into the abuse and appropriation of indigenous traditions, lore, and culture. So, worth noting, one thing that real present day camps, actual summer camps, are finally beginning to confront and reckon with is the oftentimes blatant abuse and appropriation of indigenous traditions, including indigenous names. And that's an important point to make because in various summer camp horror films of the 80s, we have story elements that simply have not aged well, would not age well, and would not be acceptable by today's scale, rightly so. So I do have an article, and I think this one I may have found after the fact, guys. So I will be sure to send that on to you afterwards. But I do have an article from The Guardian that speaks more to the actual summer camps out there in North America, North America, which includes Canada, that are grappling with these realities. And some of them are stepping up and addressing this, some of them not so much. So the Guardian article came out in 2022, and it mentioned a camp up in Waterloo, Canada, that underwent a name change after receiving requests from a local Indigenous community there. In 2021, Camp Iroquois in New York changed its name to Camp Evergreen. But worth noting, the article mentions that many camps are still slow to catch on to this, either intentionally or, I mean, I don't know. It's 2020. It's 2025. There's no excuse. But we still have many. It says we still have many accredited summer camps that dress their campers in Native American outfits and split kids up into what they call tribes, often using names like Cherokee, Apache, and Comanche. Even, like using the word tribe is not appropriate. And so certainly using like actual names of indigenous tribes is not okay. So people need to catch the hell up and address these things. It's not hard. Just do it. Just do it. Um, So yeah, that link is not in what you guys received earlier today because I located it later on in the day. So I'm going to get that to you after the live stream is over. Hang on, let me get a sip. I just dripped. It's fine. So I shall now take you through a quick list of best summer slashers that are not Friday the 13th, as pulled together by the good folks over at CBR.com. And that is a link that you guys did get today. So, um, 10 films that are not Friday the 13th that you can put on your watch list to usher you into summer. At number 10, we have 2014's Stage Fright for the folks who love comedy, horror, and musicals. in stage fright, the summer camp gets a little more niche, being a dedicated musical theater camp. So the premise of this is that 10 years after the murder of her Broadway icon mother, the heroine in this movie takes on a lead role at a theater camp. And the kicker, the role is the same role her mother performed right before she was murdered. Of course, the past comes to haunt her, and the blood starts flowing as the camp works to put on the play. I full disclosure, I haven't seen this one. Hadn't even heard of this one. So it sounds like a blast. I would definitely be all in for this kind of movie. I love a horror musical. I personally don't think we have enough. So, number 9 is 1981's Madman. Madman is what happens when campfire horror tales come to life. So, the Madman, which came out in 1981, I can't remember if I said that. I may have just said that. But you've got Madman Mars, who is kind of a Cropsey esque figure. And as a matter of fact, I think that is the origin story for what was the inspiration for this film was the Legend of Cropsey. So yeah, that's definitely a summer camp movie to put on your list. Number 8 is 2018's You Might Be the Killer, which is another horror comedy starring Allison Hannigan and Keith David as Sheriff James. So you know, Ronnie loves horror comedies. I love horror comedies too. I think they're great. Um, I think it's sometimes I just want to be good and scared, but sometimes, that especially for this particular offshoot of horror. Summer camp easy. Summer camp horror is so easily um comedic, so it's fun to play with it and have fun with it and make it funny. And then number 7, we've got 2022's She Came from the Woods, which I haven't seen, but it sounds like a return to form of, the 80s slashers of yore. This is also listed as a horror comedy. It stars Cara Buono. Hopefully I'm saying that right, who's been around for freaking ever. And I started tracking her with Mad Men. She was in Mad Men, and then she's in Stranger Things. She's Mike and Nancy's mother. So that's number 7. She Came from the Woods, 2022. Number 6, Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight, which came out in 2020, and this is a Polish film. So I think this film is interesting because it's able to channel a little of the old style format in that it sounds like this is a camping scenario where the kids are going to a no tech camp. So no cell phones, no social media. All of that is forbidden while they're there. So in that sense, it's kind of evoking, an 80s horror setting that we would see in like an 80s summer camp movie. So interesting. I've not seen this one either, but I love a foreign language horror film. I love uh, the idea of like a summer camp movie, and a foreign language horror film that's kind of borrowing on, I think, like what was really cultivated in American cinema, the summer camp slasher. So moving on, we have number 5, 1981's The Burning, which is a classic tale of a grumpy loner, some punk kids, and a thirst for vengeance. The Burning stars, as some of you may know, a young Jason Alexander and a very young Holly Hunter. So yeah, as well as Fisher Stevens. So worth noting there. Um, Number 4 is a film I've been trying to watch since the start of Don't Watch at Night, and I can't find the damn movie ever anywhere, but it's my unicorn at this point. So the movie is 2015's Summer Camp. That's the name of it, Summer Camp. It's a Spanish film that combines that summer camp element with a contagion of some kind, from my understanding. So it follows a group of American counselors at a European summer camp. Things start to take an unsettling turn when a rage-inducing plague infects the animals in the woods. So no, I haven't seen this one. Yes, I desperately want to, and yeah, I hope to at some point. That's a movie that I've been trying to get for like Veronica and I to do an episode on, and it just hasn't come to fruition. And it's the kind of thing where it's like I want to do it in the summer because it's a summer camp movie. Maybe this will be the summer. There's still time. Maybe we can figure it out. Yeah. But yeah. So what did I say? That's number 4. So that's high on the list. So here we go. Let me take a sip and then we'll get to number 3. I'm interested to know what you think number 3 might be. Um, what the top 3 would be. Because I wasn't surprised at number 1 at all, but I was surprised what makes out the top 3. So at number 3, we have 2015's The Final Girls, which I have seen. It's so much fun. This was another horror comedy, and it starred I don't know. I'm the Farmiga uh, sister, the young one, uh, Taisa, Taisa, American Horror Story girl, lovely, great actress. Stars her, Malin Ackerman, Nina Dobrev, Thomas Middleditch, Adam Devine, just a bunch of people. I liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was great. Um, and and good fun and a nice little nod to the genre. So I feel like it was reasonably well liked by people, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm alone in my appreciation for that one. I don't think I am. Not if they're making it number 3. Surely other people also love it. So yeah, that's number 3. Number 2, Fear Street 1978. I'm hardly surprised. I truly love it. I thought they did such a phenomenal job. So, this was part 2. For those of you who maybe didn't see it, this was part 2 in the Fear Street trilogy that came out in 2021. And it stars Sadie Sink of Stranger Things fame. And like I said, I think it was the best, in my opinion, of the 3. And that's cutting it close because I loved all of them, to be perfectly honest. And I've rewatched them in the years since. I just watched, side note, I just watched Fear Street Prom Queen and I've seen mixed reviews on it online. I've seen that not everybody loves it. I liked it. I had a fun time with it. Did I love it as much as this trilogy? No. Like it didn't elicit the same sense of excitement and love that the trilogy did. But I liked it fine. I enjoyed it. It was it was a fun watch, and I would watch it again easily. And that's the thing that I want to say about the Fear Street movies. I'm so glad that they're making them. Again, that's another piece of nostalgia from my childhood. I read the Fear Street books, had so many Fear Street books. So I'm so happy they're making those movies, and I hope they'll keep doing it. And just because Prom Queen didn't necessarily hit all the notes that the trilogy did, doesn't I think it's a perfectly fine movie. I enjoyed it just fine. But Fear Street 1978. I just rewatched it just recently, actually, because I was so thirsty for summer camp horror that I was just like, I'll watch that. It's just so good. It's so good. And the sister element, like everything was perfect. It was beautiful, beautiful. If you haven't seen it somehow, miraculously, watch it tonight. That's your Friday night movie. Go watch the Fear Street. Go watch the trilogy, but for sure, don't sleep on 1978. And then number 1, hold on one second. Guesses. Feel free to make them. Number 1 to wrap us up is 1983's Sleepaway Camp. Which I don't think anyone should be surprised by. This is often referred to as the seminal summer camp slasher movie, and it's great. What did I? What like this is what the article says: with bloody kills and a twist reminiscent of William Castle's 1961 Homicidal, it keeps viewers guessing while mixing red herrings with cryptic flashbacks. And honestly, like when I was writing up my notes for this, I was just like, I don't even know what could be said about this movie at this point that hasn't already been said. It's great. It's so much fun. The big reveal at the end is fantastic. And if you're looking and especially if you're looking for something that like perfectly encapsulates that 1980s summer camp aesthetic that I think we're all like hungry for and gravitating towards. And so when Fear Street 1978 came out and captured that, we were immediately like, oh, it this was that in pure raw new fresh form. So yes, it's fitting that Sleepaway Camp is number 1. It's perfect. and definitely put that on your summer viewing list if you haven't already. I will tell you, this isn't part of my notes, but I will tell you, I never did. Interestingly enough, considering how much I love summer camp horror, I never did. I never went to summer camps. I was a counselor. I did do that. I have had that experience when I was in college. I was a summer camp counselor, specifically a dance specialist at a summer camp up in the Catskills of like New York State region. So perfect, perfect quintessential creepiness. And it was a harrowing experience, and I don't recommend. I mean, it wasn't that it wasn't fun, but could I have done without it? Yes, absolutely. You could skip that and be fine. So if you've never done summer camps, you've not missed out on anything. If you've never worked at a summer camp, you've not missed out on anything. But it was great. For like that's my I guess like connection to summer camp horror is that I have been a camp counselor, and that was a fun experience that I didn't need and I wouldn't do again. So so that's that on that. Um and then like hold on, let me just take a quick sip. Scratchy throat. That's kind of it. That's what I had for you guys today. Um I hope you enjoyed this. I I love summer camp horror. It's just when it comes to like favorite horror film, like easy going, easy viewing. For me, it's this genre. 80s films in general is easy viewing, but this in particular. Somebody was saying online, what's your comfort horror movie? And for me, it's Poltergeist, but which isn't a summer camp horror. But honestly, anything summer camp horror related is going to be comfort viewing to me. Sleepaway Camp, I've seen, I enjoy. Friday the 13th, I especially the first one, I enjoy. Um, Fear Street 1978, as I just told you, I just watched that maybe within the last week or the week before, and that's become comfort viewing. Even though, like, as I was watching it again and I was watching that ending, which is like, because what they infuse it with is like, it's 1980s nostalgia, but it's also infused with like some beautiful storytelling and some meaningful stuff at the end. And so it's heartbreaking at the end. And I was rewatching the ending and it was just like, man, this is dark, but also well done. So, um, yeah, I'm so happy that I got to talk to you about this today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I am a child of summer. My birthday is next week. Gemini season. Welcome to my season, babe. It's crazy in here and we're having a blast. So, yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe it's because I'm a child of summer that I just gravitate towards summer horror films, summer camp horror in particular. I just think that's so fun and I always want to dive into that. And and yeah, any storytellers out there, movie makers, authors, anybody who's doing that and trying to like reinvigorate that in the current space of storytelling today, you have my attention. I think that's exciting and I think that's really fun and I totally support that. So yeah. Here we go. Like I said, don't forget, we've got compilation episodes coming for you in June. Also, we're dropping a fun surprise in June for people on Patreon. So I'm not going to say anything about what it is, but just if you're on Patreon, expect to receive that soon. If you're not part of our Patreon, please do it. Please do it. We would love to make you part of our weird community. And we're so thankful for your support and for your listenership and your viewership. We hope to be able to do more in the time to come, and yeah, we're having a blast and I hope you are too. This has been so rewarding. And so yeah, other things to remember, don't forget about book club. Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. look forward to book club discussion episode coming in June, and that's it. That's what I've got for you guys. I hope you have. Where are we? Where are we? 54 minutes. Perfect. Look at how great we did. I hope you had a great time. This was so much fun. Thank you for being part of Creepy Cocktail Hour number 5. More to come. You only had to endure one doorbell ringing, one instance of Luna barking her head off. So that's a win. And I hope you have a great weekend wherever you are. And we love you. Thank you so much for listening. And we will see you next time. Bye.